Hi, I'm Jessica Citizen from Player Attack.
And I'm Chad Hable.
We've just got back from E3 2012, which makes it as good a time as any to do a bit of a recap of just what we got up to in Los Angeles. So, best place to start was your first E3. What did you think?
It was fantastic. It was huge, very exciting, lots of lights, massive screen, lots of sound, total sensory overload. So I really wanted to get in a dark room for about a week and cuddle up in a little ball for a while afterwards. So that was good, but it was everything that anyone had said. But having taken a step back and looking at it, you can see that there's a lot of smoke and mirrors of the industry and a lot of publishers trying to jostle for attention and get a slice of the pie, so to speak. So I did notice some kind of cynicism and some depression and some disappointment from some of the more seasoned veterans of E3. What would you make of that?
I think that's about right. I think there were a lot of people who were quite disappointed in this year's E3. I'm not quite sure how the numbers stack up against last year, but it seemed smaller. The people were not as excited, not as enthusiastic as they had been previously. I think the build-up previous, like in the lead-up to E3, everyone was so excited that there was going to be these new consoles that were going to be released. And then the fact that even on the Monday morning before the Microsoft press conference, there were still people sitting there, fingers crossed, hoping that they were just going to materialize a 720 out of thin air. And they didn't. And so even though we'd been told time and again, this isn't going to happen, it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen, there was still a sense of, but no, they still could have done something.
They tried. They did have the Smart Glass.
They did have Smart Glass. Smart Glass looks kind of awesome. I'm a little bit excited to see where that might go. I think there are some definite possibilities for that one. Definitely. What did you think about that one in particular?
Seems like early days, like we're waiting to see how it's really going to work out. Microsoft were really pushing their media, their multimedia message, and I was kind of there for games, so I was a bit disappointed about that. But I'm really excited to be able to watch something like Game of Thrones and see where on the map they are at the moment, or play a game like Aliens Colonial Marines and look into the mythology and some of the extra detail. I think that's the kind of game nerdery that people are going to really love out of the Smart Glass. We did see the Wii U as well. What did you make of that? We did.
I think, having seen it last year, I think it was a fairly natural progression this year. I think it had progressed quite nicely, really. The hardware's gotten better. It's gotten more sensible. It's got actual joysticks instead of just the little nubby things that it had last year. The content also has progressed in leaps and bounds, even though they still don't seem quite sure quite where they're heading with it. Some of the tech demos that we saw last year that were simply tech demos have now been beefed up into be part of Nintendo Land, which we saw for the first time. So
I'm really excited by the asynchronous gameplay. I'm a big nerd for gameplay innovation, and when I got onto the Zombie U, I was really excited by that. What you have is you have one person playing on a traditional Pro controller, a bit like a survival horror zombie game, and someone else playing something like Zombie Master. You know, they're kind of deploying resources and putting zombies all around and trying to trap the person and play strategies in an objective-based game. That was really exciting to get players playing in opposite directions and playing against the grain of each other. It was really exciting. I was actually even a little bit interested by the Animal Crossing game, which I wasn't expected.
See, I knew that I'd be interested in the Animal Crossing game, but I didn't actually get my hands on Zombie U, so it's good to hear that there was a lot of hype about this being the hardcore Wii U game. So it's good to see from someone who actually played it that it did actually live up to the hype a bit.
It looks fantastic, it plays well, but the really exciting thing is the way you're going to get that multiplayer experience. And I think that when you get the 4 players on the Wii, the nunchuck controllers, and then the 1 player on the Wii gamepad, the Wii U gamepad, that's going to be really exciting. And the booth operators, the people working in the booth, were very excitable and made it lots of fun and really, really enhanced that kind of togetherness, sharing, creating, playing together.
They were getting very excited about the Super Mario Brothers, which we also checked out. Lots of... I was playing on the Wii U gamepad, so I could place blocks around the place, and they could either be placed to help or to hinder the other booth attendants who were checking out the game with me, which was quite good. Would have been better had I known what exactly I was doing and was possibly able to stop them from falling to their nasty death. But this is it's like when the Wii first came out, there was a pretty significant learning curve on that. People looked at it and went, I don't know quite how this works, and then played with it a bit and went, this makes sense. So I think it's going to be the same sort of thing with the Wii U as well.
I think there was a lot of people were very cynical about the Wii U. And sure about the Wii U. I keep thinking though, what did people say when the Wii first came out? They said, "Oh my God, you're going to have people swinging things around and doing this motion control thing. How lame does that sound?" And we know what kind of story that turned into for Nintendo and the rest of the gaming world. So I'm quite interested to see what the Wii U is going to have. But what big story of E3? What was your game of show, Jess?
SimCity.
Easy.
No questions asked. SimCity from day one, from the EA press conference, it was just SimCity hands down. And whenever I told anyone that was my game of show, they would look at me really confused and be, "Really? Are you sure?" And with all the flashy, exciting new stuff that's coming out, you're excited about essentially a reboot of a 10, 15, 20-year-old game. I was like, but it is a reboot of a decades-old title. It goes right back to its roots. It strips out all of the stuff that had all been crammed into it in the late 90s, which, by the time you got up to SimCity 3000, 4000, however many thousands, it was just so complicated and so drawn out. And it wasn't about building a city anymore. It was all about building your tiny little infrastructures and all the little stuff. But now it's like you just slap down your buildings, slap down your roads, pull and stretch out your power cables to do things. They've made that into a game, and everything's just it's more detailed, but it's less complicated.
Very refined and intuitive. So they've really refined the gameplay back down to the basics and the big picture stuff. And the multiplayer stuff looks quite interesting as well.
Multiplayer stuff looks amazing. You can sit there, you on one side of a table, friend on the other side, and you can either work with each other or against each other. If your city is overrun by crime, your criminals will soon start popping in their cars and heading over next door to ravage the other player's city.
And you can collaborate together on major projects, which is a really interesting aspect as well.
And it was really refreshing as well to see that SimCity developers at Maxis are actually... they're thinking that people are going to want to work together, as opposed to so many of the other multiplayer games like the Zombie U and other multiplayer games are coming out where it's everyone playing against each other and all about fragging and killing people. So I
think co-op gameplay is a big story.
It is.
Very interesting.
It is. But what was your game of show?
Mine was probably flew under the radar a little bit as well, and I probably decided what it was before I went to E3 as well, a bit like you, but it was Dishonored for me, definitely. I think this is a beautiful looking game. I think we have Victor Antonov, the art director from Half-Life 2, designing the city and building this beautiful steampunky kind of alternate Victorian London sort of environment, full of rats and the plague and... piles of bodies in bags, very oppressive rich people who you just know you're going to want to love to kill, and hard done poor people, and really beautiful environment. So a really great looking game to start with. But the thing that really excited me was the gameplay. When you got some hands on, it's very, very diverse, very innovative gameplay for me. I think there's a genuine experience of combat, really high action, high intensity combat is possible, and also a lot of stealth going on there as well. So there's lots of supernatural skills, lots of different weapons that you can play together to really attack a problem from a lot of different angles and play in your own way. I played the same section about 4 times. I died a lot, as you do in demos. Played the same section 4 times and did it completely differently every time. And when I walked away, I thought, I could have done this differently. I could have done that differently. So you can blink teleport, you can possess animals and people, you can do all sorts of things. It seems very, very exciting for me. So that's the one I'm looking forward to.
I didn't actually get a chance to get hands-on with Dishonored. I was rushing around doing interviews and whatever else. What I did see of the game in the presentation was that it looked really quite detailed and complex, and like it was the sort of thing that you couldn't necessarily just pick up and know how you're playing from the beginning. So how easy is it to play? I think the problem that you have at E3 is the demo that they're showing you is you're completely ramped up, you're completely overpowered, and you've got all the skills at your fingertips to use, and so they try and make that all available to you, so it's quite overwhelming in that way. I think that when we play the game, they're going to introduce you to those skills more slowly, they'll introduce you to the narrative more slowly, and you'll really become immersed in it much more gently, and you'll have opportunities to really refine your skills with each of the skills and abilities in different ways to kind of build together this great kind of melange of different approaches and skills. So I think it's going to be a lot more gentle introduction to it when we actually see the game itself. We were talking about co-op being a major thing of show. We were talking about asynchronous gameplay being a major thing of show. The other big thing of the show, which was actually quite surprising to many people, was the fact that mobile gaming and social gaming have both made a massive impact on this traditionally hardcore, PC and console-based trade show. So it was huge. It's the first time I can remember seeing mobile gaming on the floor. EA had a showcase showing off all their mobile and Facebook games. Facebook games had a spot on the floor right alongside, big name stuff. But also, newcomer to the Western world is a Japanese company called Gree. They had a huge chunk of real estate in the hall dedicated completely to mobile gaming. So did you get a chance to check that one out?
I did, yeah. I had a bit of a look at Green. They had a big party as well. That's always going to turn heads and get some attention. The thing that impressed me, actually, I spent more time in the EA showcase. The thing that impressed me the most there was the new Facebook game Outernauts, which is developed by Insomniac, and the development team precisely from the Resistance franchise, and particularly Resistance 3, are coming in and making a Facebook game, which is really exciting. So what they're bringing is console aesthetics and console sensibility. So you've got a bit of a point-and-click adventure, narrative-based type thing, and then again more asynchronous gameplay where you can meet your friends' avatars. Your Facebook friends will have avatars and you can have battles with them, Pokemon style, and quite an expansive large world which is on Facebook, free to play. It's something that's already there for everyone and really is taking mobile gaming, particularly Facebook gaming, in a new direction, I think. I
suggested to the guys from Attendees that they had taken a big step backwards. They'd gone from Resistance, which is this huge massive detailed world, and they were moving to Facebook, and what kind of decision is that? They actually sat there and told me that it's definitely not scaling anything down. In some ways it's actually making the world even bigger, because realistically they now have the entire actual human world to play with as well.
That's right. And all of the social relationships that are available there as well. I'm a huge one for co-op gaming, Jess, so I absolutely I was very excited about Borderlands 2. That was one game where I can say more of the same, fantastic, no problems there. That's very exciting. Very interested to see co-op in Dead Space 3. Dead Space is one of my favourite franchises as well. A lot of people aren't happy about it.
Yes, I was about to say, there are a number of people who have, Dead Space 3 is moving away from the survival horror game and instead moving into this co-op thing. Is it more exciting to be scared when you're with your mates?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm going to have to see how it plays out. I think there's two responses to that. I think that the developers coming out and saying there's still definitely a single player experience to be had there. So there's different gameplay elements and different narrative elements, whether you play it single player or in a co-op environment. I'm going to enjoy playing it co-op, but we'll see how that plays out as it comes in, I think. Yeah.
Silent Hill also is moving to a more co-op model rather than the that was also another survival horror game that is moving to co-op. So maybe getting scared with your friends is the next big thing.
Could be, and I think that actually in terms of Dead Space has been moving much more towards action horror basically since it started. I think that people have been saying that since Resident Evil 4 we've really lost survival horror, and I think what we're going to find is survival horror coming through in indie gaming much more. So we have a sequel of Amnesia coming out soon. I think that's genuine survival horror. There was a very interesting little indie project showed called A Mother's Inferno, which was a 16-week project done by a bunch of Danish students. I'm going to write that one up, so I'm really looking forward to having a look at that and sharing more about you with that. I think we're going to find survival horror occupying more of a niche market, and those big franchises are going to be going for more the action horror experience anyway. But I would maintain that Dead Space is definitely a horror experience itself. Yeah.
One of the other major things that happened this year at E3, there were a few themes that were running through. Everyone was a little bit disturbed by the level of violence and gore and mature content that came through this year's show. Warren Spector, who was showing off Epic Mickey 2, which was one of the least violent games on show, he's saying that he's kind of horrified by the amount of violence that's coming through in video games. The fact that at the PlayStation press conference on Monday night, the biggest response from the crowd was when a bad guy, arguably, was being held on the ground, was shot in the head while he was pleading for his life. This resulted in massive applause throughout the stadium. Is this the right way for games to be going?
I think we definitely saw it in God of War Ascension as well. That was really big, and something that wasn't really picked up on, I don't think, that I've seen, is also the carving open the head of the elephant as well, and thinking about the elephant trade and things like that. There's ethical issues there. I think that yes, there's a definite problem there, and Warren Spector's right on the money. But I think at the same time, that kind of visceral experience is actually only one part of gaming. I think that there's actually an undercurrent. There's a lot more going on with gaming, and unfortunately, it's the vocal minority, and even the people at E3 are still a minority of gamers around the world, and it's the most controversial things that are going to get up and actually occlude a lot more interesting discussion about things that are going on. So I'll watch this space, I think. We'll see how it goes. Yeah.
So, final thoughts? E3, will you be back next year?
I think so. I'm very excited to be back. We'll come back. I think next year is going to be the year of consoles.
Next year might be the year of consoles, but where is it going to be? They haven't announced yet. They haven't announced dates. They haven't announced a location. Every year when you leave E3, they have a big banner up that says, see you here next year.
They're apparently building a stadium in the Los Angeles Convention Center, so it's probably not going to be there.
Nope.
There are rumours of New York. I've heard people mention New York.
Oh, really? I've heard wishes that might be in Hawaii.
Hawaii, Vegas. Actually, I think we should put up a petition for Adelaide.
I think we should put up a petition for Adelaide.
E3 Adelaide. There we go.
I think probably more likely Vegas. Vegas is probably the more likely one.
Probably got the venue for it. But I'll certainly love to be there, and I'm sure you will.
Definitely. So, yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.